Hi, and welcome to another weekly Wednesday Kickstarter roundup from Rule of Carnage, bringing together all the best that Kickstarter has for tabletop miniatures gamers. And it's been quite a quiet week on Kickstarter this week. I think we're finally seeing the slowdown running up to Christmas now that we're actually into December. Still a handful of interesting projects. We've got a models project, some STLs, and a pay what you want. So we'll roll straight in with that physical models reward campaign, and it is Ragnarok 7, The Woses of Drudane Forest by Colin Patton. So this is a campaign for a warband's worth of Woses in 28mm white metal. So what Woses are, according to the campaign, are a sort of pygmy-like native people who live within the forest of Drudane. I think practically speaking they are sort of club, spear, bow-armed sort of warband led by a shaman and a war chief. So yeah, they're going to work sort of, I think, in a range of settings. They'll work quite nicely in fantasy, sort of miniatures agnostic, if you're looking for possibly sort of a threat or a horde style warband force where you want sort of good numbers for a small warband. You're not looking for something elite. You could potentially sort of expand these out into a small mass battle force, but I think this would play best at a sort of warband level. I could see these working in something like Saga Age of Magic. You've got some good options here. They're lovely sculpts. I think they'd work really nicely for anybody who's looking for a sort of small scale, small scope game, and they're looking for some sort of non-elite humanoid forces. Okay, moving on from physical reward campaigns, we've got our STL campaigns for the week. And first up for our STL campaigns is Pactum Aeternum by Daka Store. So whenever Daka put up a campaign, it always goes great guns, and this one's no exception. This is a campaign for a bunch of converting bits and pieces for 40k. So there are heads, weapons, shields, cloaks, mainly for converting up various flavours of Space Marines into various other flavours of Space Marines. There's plenty in this campaign, I think, for miniatures agnostic gamers, anybody with a real sort of taste for kit bashing. I miss the days when you could get sort of any bit and piece out from GW. So having something like this that has the quality and the detail and the richness of GW pieces, because these are sculpted and designed to match in with that models range, but then having the ability to pick out exactly the bits and pieces you want when you're putting together a kit bash, a conversion, whatever it happens to be, a themed unit or army, I think is really the best of both worlds. So if you are obviously a 40k player who enjoys converting and kit bashing and altering your sort of Space Marines, this is an easy campaign to back. You've probably already backed it by this point. If you are a miniatures agnostic player and you like kit bashing, you like fiddling, you like converting, then I think I'd strongly suggest stopping by and giving it a look over and sort of letting the imagination work on some of these pieces, because there are loads of bits here with great detail and loads of versatility, and I think it would be a shame to pass it by because you happen to not be a 40k player. I think there's a lot here available for miniatures agnostic and independent gamers. Okay, moving on. Next up for our STL file campaigns, we've got The Outpost, 3D printable futuristic miniature city builder by Curret William. This is a really nice set of themed modular 3D printable pieces for creating a sort of futuristic, semi-futuristic city. What's particularly nice about it is it comes with STLs for bases that match in with the buildings and the city pieces that the bases will be in if you use them. The buildings themselves are really well designed for playing. They are they're semi-ruined and completely untouched buildings, but lots of flat roofs, lots of walkways, lots of open staircases and ramps and things of that nature. Lots of open buildings, even when they're unruined, in their basic state. They have open walls and large windows, and all the bits and pieces. It's going to make it that much easier for you to get minis in there and move them around and position them and figure out line of sight and do all the little things that we need to do whilst playing a game that sometimes our terrain doesn't help us with. So the modular nature of the buildings of the files obviously means that there's tons of modularity, by definition. Loads of options here. You could fill out a whole bunch of different sci-fi based, miniatures agnostic, setting agnostic games. I think if you don't have a modular set of sci-fi terrain, this is a great one to pick up and well worth checking out. Okay, next up for our STL files, we've got Burgh by Deco Quest Workshop. This is kind of an interesting campaign in that I guess I technically could have included it as our pay what you want campaign, because it does have a pay what you want level, but the pay what you want level is offered, but it's primarily not a pay what you want campaign. What it's for is for a set of medieval style, fantasy style buildings, and they're really nice buildings. These are the ones that are a little cut above. They've got an extra bit of detail in there, an extra little bit of something to them. Each of the buildings has a bit of something extra. So even the pay what you want level 1, there's a lovely overhanging, leaning wall within the building that gives it a real odd texture and quality to it. Every one of these buildings has a really strong texture and feel. There's about enough buildings here for a small hamlet or a village, so you might want to extend it out with some other buildings, but I think these guys would be the centerpieces of most building collections. Loads of playability, usable stairs, openable doors, open walkway pieces, flat outside balconies, all the bits and pieces that you want to be able to get a miniature onto, overhang, oversee other people. Lots of usability and playability in there. Really lovely, well designed buildings with a really strong sense of place and feel. Well worth checking out. Strong recommend on looking this one over. Okay, last up for our standard STL files for this week, we've got Starship Fleets by Michael Crossman. This is a really nice little Kickstarter campaign for a set of setting agnostic, miniatures agnostic, kind of scale agnostic, deep space spaceships. So these I think are going to be really suitable for something like A Billion Suns. It even comes with a set of jump gates that you can use for your jump gates. I think they'd work for any deep space set game. I think they'd work really nicely for something like Full Thrust or anything of that nature that isn't super tied into the set of minis or the set of bases and bits and pieces you need to use. It's as I say, quite a small campaign. It has funded, but every extra backer I think is going to really mean a lot to this campaign. So I strongly suggest looking by, supporting the creator and supporting a small independent on Kickstarter, because I really think that this campaign is what Kickstarter and STL file campaign should ideally be all about. So please stop by, give that one a look over, and give it a bit of support. Okay, that's it for our standard file campaigns. As usual, we've got a Pay What You Want campaign, and the Pay What You Want campaign for this week is Sci-Fi Bus Pay What You Want by Perizo Games. So, last of all, this is a Pay What You Want campaign, and it has, at the time of recording, not yet met its funding goal. It's got plenty of time. I think it will still get there, but obviously it's struggling to get over the line. So I'd like people to stop by and give it a look over, because it's a really fun little campaign. It's for a bus, a sort of sci-fi looking themed bus. So it would work, I think, really nicely for any cyberpunk styled sort of noir futuristic city set game. They mention Infinity within the campaign. I think it'd work really nicely for Infinity, but I think it'd work really nicely for anything that has that sort of futuristic but in places a bit broken down feel to it. Anything that's primarily urban set, and obviously cyberpunk, anything of that sort of nature. So if you are interested in cyberpunk, futuristic, sort of city-based games, if you're a miniatures agnostic gamer, and if you want to pick up a genuinely quite unusual, this is not the sort of file that you see very often, piece, and slotted into the library, and as I often say for these unusual pieces, if you need it, if it comes up in a project and it's what you want, you're going to really be happy that you've got it, because you're not going to see it again for quite a while, I should think. So I think this is a really strong one to stop by and at least back on the pay what you want level and pick up a really unusual file to have available in the library for when it's going to be, the exact thing that you're looking for. Okay, that is it for this week. As I said, quite a quiet week on Kickstarter. I think we're really seeing the slowdown running up to Christmas now that we're in December. I would imagine that it'll get possibly even quieter over the next few weeks, and we'll take a little break for Christmas before coming back in January. There's still some interesting projects out there, stuff worth swinging by, looking over. I know that money can be tight for toys and things, this time of year, but I think there are some creators that are well worth stopping by, giving just a little bit of support to, as they're putting out interesting things at a difficult time. As usual, I'll be back on Saturday with Mike Hutchinson for a game design chat. I will return next Wednesday for another Kickstarter roundup. If you are going to back any of these campaigns, please swing down to the comment section. Let me know what you're backing, why you're backing it, what you're interested in, what sort of things are catching your attention, and swing by the Discord. And shout out to me about what things you want to see on Kickstarter, you're looking forward to, what sorts of things you're backing and what you're waiting on. But for now, from me, from this episode of Rule of Carnage, it's going to be a thank you and goodbye. So thank you and goodbye. Bye-bye.